He sat in the corner of the classroom, in a wheelchair, wearing worn clothes, with a quiet, distant look. Everyone avoided him, everyone except one boy. He walked over, held out his hand, and smiled. Subscribe and write in the comments where you're watching us from. The first Monday of October began like any other at Westbrook Middle School. The air outside was crisp, the leaves already turning from green to amber and red. Students shuffled into the building with the usual Monday grogginess, their backpacks swinging, voices blending into a steady hum of chatter and laughter. Teachers stood at their doorways with travel mugs in hand, keeping watch with sleepy smiles. Inside, room 207, the seats were half filled as students settled into their usual routines. Tyler leaned back in his chair, chatting about a video game update, while Emily scribbled the last few answers to her weekend math homework. No one paid much attention to the empty desk near the window. That changed when Miss Bennett walked in, followed by a quiet boy in a wheelchair. The room fell still. Conversations died mid-sentence. All eyes turned toward the doorway and the boy who entered. He was about 12, pale-skinned, with dark brown hair that curled just slightly over his forehead. He wore a simple gray hoodie and faded jeans that bunched slightly at the bottom near his sneakers. His wheelchair was lightweight but well-used, with scuffed wheels and a small cloth pouch attached to the side. His posture was straight, his eyes forward, but there was a subtle tension in his jaw, like he already knew exactly how this would go. "This is Alex Carter," Miss Bennett announced, smiling as she placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "He just transferred here. Please make him feel welcome." No one spoke. Alex moved his chair toward the desk by the window. It had been cleared ahead of time, enough space left for him to wheel into place without having to ask anyone to move. He set down a notebook and a pen, adjusted his hoodie sleeve, and stared at the whiteboard as if it were the only thing that existed in the room. Miss Bennett began the lesson, her voice steady and warm, but the students around Alex kept glancing at him, some curious, some hesitant. A few exchanged smirks. One boy near the back leaned over and whispered, "Bet he lives in one of those shelters or something." The others around him snickered, quickly looking away when Miss Bennett turned. Alex noticed. He noticed everything, but he didn't react. By lunchtime, most students had already categorized him. Wheelchair, plain clothes, probably poor, definitely not someone to sit with. When the bell rang, the classroom emptied quickly, chairs scraping against the floor, chatter rising again. Alex stayed behind. He pulled a sandwich from a brown paper bag, unwrapped it, and ate alone at his desk. The door opened, and a boy walked in. He was a little taller than Alex, with warm brown skin and short, tightly curled hair. He wore a blue t-shirt over a white long sleeve and black joggers with a school logo. His expression was open, curious, and friendly. "Hey," he said, stepping closer. "You mind if I sit here?" Alex blinked, surprised. He looked at the boy's face, then at the empty seat beside him. "You're not eating with the others?" The boy shrugged. "They're loud. I like quiet." Alex didn't answer, but after a moment he gestured to the seat. The boy dropped his tray on the desk and sat down. "I'm Malik, by the way. Malik Johnson." "Alex." "Nice to meet you, Alex," Malik said, smiling as he opened a juice box. "So, how's Westbrook treating you so far?" Alex looked at him. "Pretty much how I expected." "Let me guess," Malik said, pointing his straw toward the door. "Stares, silence, whispers?" Alex nodded slowly. "Yeah," Malik said. "They do that to anyone new. But you really confuse them. They're used to seeing people who look like them. You shook the system up. Alex looked at him more closely. You're not exactly invisible either. Malik grinned. Nope. Moved here last year. Same routine. First week, nobody talks to you. Second week, they joke behind your back. Third week, they forget you exist. Unless you're really good at something. You good at something? Soccer, Malik said, and making friends with people who eat alone. Alex let out a faint breath. Not a laugh, not quite, but not cold either. From that day forward, they began sitting together more often. Malik didn't force conversation, didn't ask too many questions. He talked about normal things, movies, music, what the cafeteria tried and failed to call pizza. Alex listened, and when he spoke, Malik always paid attention like it mattered. By the end of the week, students started noticing. One lunch period, Tyler muttered, "Looks like the new kid and Malik are forming their own little pity club." Emily rolled her eyes but said nothing. Malik heard it but didn't react. You get used to it, he told Alex later, or you just stop caring. Alex glanced at him. Do you? Some days, Malik said. Some days I just remember who I am and who I'm not. That helps. One afternoon, as they headed out of the building together, Alex struggled with the front ramp. The custodian hadn't cleared the wet leaves, and one of the wheels caught on the slick concrete. Malik didn't wait to be asked. He stepped in, braced the chair from behind, and helped guide it down. You didn't have to, Alex said. I know, Malik replied, but I wanted to. Alex turned to look at him. His expression wasn't guarded for once. Thanks. Any time. That night, Alex lay awake longer than usual. He thought about the way Malik had sat beside him without flinching, the way he'd ignored the whispers, the way he'd simply shown up and stayed. It wasn't pity. It wasn't charity. It was choice. And for the first time in a long while, Alex didn't feel invisible. He felt seen. The second week at Westbrook Middle School unfolded beneath low gray skies and crisp, chilly mornings that carried the scent of fallen leaves and damp pavement. By now, most students had settled into the routine of autumn. Sweaters replacing t-shirts, the vending machines switched from iced tea to hot cocoa, and the school heaters clicking on reluctantly during early periods. The start of the week was marked by nothing unusual. Homework announcements, sleepy lectures, and the endless echo of sneakers squeaking down polished floors. Yet, something had changed, subtle but growing, in the atmosphere around two particular boys. Alex Carter no longer sat entirely alone. He was still quiet, still distant in many ways, but now, during lunch, there was a chair beside him that was never empty. Malik Johnson had claimed it with the kind of ease that could only come from confidence born not of arrogance but of self-assurance. He didn't ask permission every day. He simply arrived. And Alex, after the first few times, had stopped waiting to be surprised by it. Their conversations were slow at first, built on small exchanges. Malik talked about his older cousin who played basketball at college, about how his mom hated clutter but always left receipts on the counter, and how their neighbor had a cat named Muffin, who stalked everyone in the building like a furry shadow. Alex mostly listened, but Malik didn't mind the silence. In fact, he seemed to understand it. When Alex did speak, his words carried weight. Observations about classmates, questions about assignments, the occasional dry remark that caught Malik off guard and made him laugh loudly, drawing glances from other tables. "You're sneaky funny," Malik said one day after Alex made a passing comment about their science teacher's obsession with frogs. Like quiet kid by day, assassin of sarcasm by night. Alex just shrugged, but there was a flicker of a smile on his lips. Outside of lunch, their paths crossed more often. Malik had gym class 2 periods after Alex's history, but they passed in the hallway regularly now. At first, it was just a nod. Then it became a fist bump. Eventually, Malik started walking with Alex to the doors at the end of the day. He never offered to push the wheelchair unless it was clear Alex needed help. And when he did help, during rain, during ramps that hadn't been cleared, he did so without making it a performance. Most students noticed but didn't comment. A few couldn't help themselves. One afternoon, as Alex and Malik exited the building, Tyler and his friends stood near the bike rack, half watching. "You dating him now, Malik?" one of them said, voice just loud enough. Malik stopped, turned, and tilted his head. "You think friendship is weird, huh?" Tyler gave a dismissive shrug. "Just seems like a lot of effort for someone who barely talks." "Yeah," Malik said. "Well, some of us like people who don't talk trash all day." He didn't raise his voice. He didn't puff up or threaten. He just said it plainly and turned back to Alex, who had stopped rolling and was staring straight ahead. "Sorry," Malik said quietly once they were a few steps away. "For what?" "You know. Them." Alex shook his head. "You don't have to apologize for other people's ignorance." Malik smiled. "Still feels like I should." The moments began to stack up after that. On a Thursday, Malik waited 20 minutes after school while Alex met with his occupational therapist. He sat outside the office, legs stretched across the bench, tapping a rhythm on his knee. When Alex finally rolled out, eyes tired and shoulders tense, Malik grinned. "You good?" Alex nodded. Long day. Year. He didn't face it alone. Malik Johnson had become a part of his life in a way Alex hadn't expected. Not just a classmate who sat with him at lunch, not just someone who stood up for him or held a door open. Malik was now someone who knew which sounds made Alex flinch, who could tell when he was in pain even if he said nothing, who understood that sometimes silence wasn't avoidance but survival. They shared more than space. They shared rhythm. Every morning, Malik waited by the front gate. Every lunch, they sat at the same table. After school, if Alex's mom had a late shift, Malik walked him home and stayed until the apartment lights came on. They didn't plan these things. They just happened, as naturally as breathing. What had begun as a gesture of kindness had become something much larger. An understanding, a reliance, a loyalty neither of them had words for yet. But even with that, there were still walls between them. Not obvious ones, not the kind built out of fear or distance. These were the quiet barriers of lived experience, memories and truths too heavy to hand over all at once. It wasn't until a cold Friday in mid-December that the wall began to crack. The day started like any other. Classes passed in a blur of half-listened lectures and ticking clocks. The school buzzed with holiday talk, who was traveling, who was staying home, what the cafeteria would serve for the winter party. Malik was unusually quiet that day. Not unfriendly, not distant, just distracted. Alex noticed. During lunch, Malik stared at his tray more than he ate. During science, he didn't laugh at the teacher's usual dramatic reenactment of the water cycle. And when the final bell rang, he didn't meet Alex at the usual side exit. Instead, Alex found him outside, leaning against the bike rack, hands stuffed deep into his coat pockets. "You okay?" Alex asked, wheeling up beside him. Malik didn't look at him right away. His eyes were on the horizon, where the sky sagged low and heavy with snow clouds. "Yeah," he said, but his voice wasn't convincing. Alex didn't press. Instead, he waited. That was something Malik had done for him often. waited for the words to come. After a moment, Malik sighed. My mom's been working overnight shifts again, full week. She hasn't slept right in 3 days. Alex nodded slowly. You worried about her? Malik shrugged. She says she's fine, but I hear her crying sometimes when she thinks I'm asleep. She thinks I don't notice, but I do. Alex didn't speak. She's been trying to keep everything together since Dad left, Malik continued, voice low, but I see the bills on the table. I hear the calls she doesn't take, and I know when I ask her how her day was, and she says, fine, it's just code for too much. Alex let the silence stretch a little before saying, I know that code, too. Malik glanced over. My mom used to say it after long hospital shifts, Alex said. Before the accident, I didn't notice. After, I started listening better. They stood there a while, side by side, the wind biting at their faces. I don't really talk about this with anyone, Malik said finally. I guess it just feels weird, like people either don't get it or they make it about themselves. I get that, Alex said. Most people try to fix you before they understand you. Malik nodded slowly. You don't do that. Neither do you. It wasn't a dramatic moment. No tears, no long hugs, just two boys sharing the weight of things they'd carried alone for too long. That night, Malik came over for dinner. Alex's mom made spaghetti and garlic bread, and even though she was clearly exhausted, she smiled more than usual. Malik helped set the table, complimented the food, and told a story about a teacher tripping on his shoelaces during morning announcements. Alex laughed harder than he had in weeks. After dinner, the boys sat in Alex's room, surrounded by stacks of books and a few carefully sketched building designs on the wall. Alex picked up one of his sketch pads and handed it to Malik without a word. Malik flipped through the pages, pausing every few drawings. The buildings were incredible. Fluid, thoughtful, full of strange angles and light. There were designs for wheelchair-accessible playgrounds, rooftop gardens, even schools with ramps built right into the layout. These are, wow, Malik said. You ever show these to anyone? Alex shook his head. Not really. You should. Alex hesitated, then said, They're kind of private. I guess I always thought people would only see the chair, not the person behind the pencil. Malik looked up. I see both. It was the simplest thing, but it landed with weight. The next week, Alex brought one of the designs to school and showed it to their math teacher during a free period. Mr. Lyle, who rarely smiled, stared at it for a full 2 minutes before saying, You should consider architecture. Seriously. Alex didn't say much in response, but his chest felt a little lighter all day. That same afternoon, Malik pulled Alex aside after gym. I have something to show you, too. He handed Alex a small folded paper. Inside was a short essay, only a few paragraphs long, handwritten and a little messy. It was titled, The Kind of Friend I'd Want to Be. Alex read it in silence. It was honest, thoughtful, and unexpectedly raw. You wrote this? Yeah, for English. The teacher said to write about someone who changed our life, so I did. Alex folded the paper again, carefully. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything, Malik said. Just know it's real. From that day, something changed. Not in how they acted, but in how they carried each other. The trust between them had solidified. It no longer needed to be tested. It had been earned. Malik knew when Alex needed help, even when he wouldn't ask. Alex knew when Malik needed silence instead of words. They made each other braver without ever saying the word brave. They didn't talk about being different anymore. They talked about what they wanted to build. They talked about the future. They talked like people who knew they belonged, even if the world wasn't ready for them yet. And though neither of them said it out loud, they both knew what they had was rare, and they intended to protect it. Whatever came next, together. Snow fell early that year. By the second week of December, the lawns and sidewalks of Westbrook were already covered in a soft white blanket that made everything feel quieter, as though the town had decided to hold its breath. School mornings began in the dim light of winter, and most students arrived bundled in coats, scarves, and mittens, stamping the cold from their boots before slipping inside. Holiday decorations had started to appear in classrooms. Paper snowflakes hung from ceiling tiles, and the scent of cinnamon from a nearby staff room drifted through the corridors. It was the kind of season that softened things, made people speak a little more gently, smile a little more easily. For Alex Carter, however, it brought with it a different kind of weight. The friendship between Alex and Malik had become so natural, so steady, that most of their classmates no longer gave it a second thought. It was assumed now. Wherever Alex was, Malik wasn't far. They shared lunch, worked on projects together, sat beside each other on the edge of the gym during activities Alex couldn't easily join. What no one else knew, what even Malik didn't know, was that Alex was hiding something far bigger than his past schools or the reason he'd transferred in the middle of the year. Alex had always been careful about what he said, what he showed. He wore plain clothes, never anything with obvious branding. His phone was several models old. His backpack was clean but basic. He spoke modestly of his home life, never lying outright, but always sidestepping. He had gotten good at that over the years. His father had taught him. Let them see what they want, his father had said once, long before the accident. Then they'll show you who they really are. Alex had never truly understood what that meant until now. It was a Wednesday afternoon when Malik first noticed something was off. They were in the library, supposed to be finishing a science report, but Alex kept glancing at the clock, tapping his fingers restlessly against the edge of the table. "You good?" Malik asked finally, setting his pencil down. Alex nodded quickly. "Yeah, just got something later." "Like what?" Alex hesitated. "Just a meeting." "With who?" "My dad." Malik tilted his head. "He picking you up?" Alex paused, then, "Something like that." Malik didn't press, but the answer sat awkwardly between them, unfinished. They returned to their notes, but the rhythm had broken. Alex left early, saying he had to go, and Malik watched him wheel away toward the front entrance with a strange feeling tightening in his chest. That night, Malik couldn't shake it. There was something in Alex's voice that hadn't sounded like him. Not nervousness, not fear. Something heavier. Malik thought of the drawings Alex had shown him, the careful lines, the attention to structure. He thought of how private Alex was, how tightly he held things in, and, suddenly, he realized how little he really knew about where Alex came from, about his family, about his life before Westbrook. On Friday, it happened. They were walking home together, snowflakes floating lazily down around them, when a sleek black car pulled up to the curb. Not just any car, one of those glossy, silent types that looked like it belonged in a CEO's garage. The windows were tinted, the tires barely crunched the snow. The driver stepped out first, tall, dressed in a tailored black coat and leather gloves. Then the back door opened. A man emerged, older than Alex, but clearly related. Same jawline, same eyes, though the father's were colder, sharper. He didn't smile. He looked at Alex, then glanced at Malik with faint disapproval. "You're late," he said. Alex's hands tightened slightly on the wheels of his chair. "We were finishing something." The man looked at Malik again. "This him?" Alex didn't answer. "I asked you a question." "Yes," Alex said finally. "This is Malik." The man extended a gloved hand. "Nicholas Carter." Malik shook it, unsure what else to do. The man's grip was firm, but brief. "I assume you're the reason he's not asking to leave early anymore?" Malik didn't know what to say to that. "I guess." Nicholas turned to Alex. "We'll talk in the car." Alex looked at Malik, and for the first time since they'd met, there was something like shame in his eyes. "I'll see you Monday," he said softly. Malik nodded, but the moment sat in his chest like a stone. The next day, Malik asked the internet the question he hadn't dared ask aloud. Nicholas Carter. The results came fast. Business magnate, founder of a national real estate development company, multiple awards, philanthropy boards, appearances at major conferences. There were photos, one in particular from a gala showing Nicholas Carter beside a boy in a wheelchair. Alex, younger, maybe 10 or 11, wearing a tuxedo, smiling politely. Malik stared at the screen. That night, he didn't sleep much. On Monday, he waited for Alex by the school gate like always. Alex arrived on time, expression guarded, the usual calmness in his eyes replaced by something more brittle. "You know," Malik said without preamble. "Don't you?" Alex nodded once. "Yeah." "Why didn't you tell me?" Alex looked away. "Because I didn't want to be seen as that kid." "The rich kid?" "The charity case with a rich dad," Alex said bitterly. "I didn't want people pretending to be my friend just because of who he is." Malik didn't answer. Alex shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "He transferred me here on purpose. Said if someone stuck around long enough without knowing, they might actually be worth trusting." Malik blinked. "Wait, so this was a test?" "No," Alex said quickly, "not like that. It was just... He didn't want me in another private school surrounded by fake smiles. He said I'd only find something real if I started with nothing." "So, you hid everything?" "I didn't lie." "You didn't have to." Malik turned, started walking. Alex rolled beside him, silent. "I didn't tell you," Alex said after a long pause, "because you were the first person who didn't look at me like I was broken. You were just... you." "And you were just you," Malik said. "But now I feel like I didn't know who that was." "You do," Alex said, voice barely above a whisper, "more than anyone." Malik stopped, turned to him. "I'm not mad because you have money, Alex. I'm mad because you didn't trust me enough to tell me the truth." Alex's jaw clenched. "I was scared." "Of me? Of losing what we had?" Malik's shoulders dropped. The tension in him uncoiled slightly. "I wouldn't have left." Alex nodded. "I know, I do now." They stood there, the morning moving around them. Buses rumbling, students shouting, teachers sipping coffee on the front steps. "I guess," Malik said slowly, "you really are just a regular kid in a wheelchair." Alex smiled weakly. "With a controlling millionaire father." Malik chuckled once. "Yeah, that too." They didn't hug, they didn't say more, but when they entered the school, they did so side by side. Later that week, Alex invited Malik over again. This time, the apartment was different. It wasn't small and modest. It was modern, open, full of art and clean lines and high ceilings. But Malik didn't care. They played video games, argued over strategy, and ordered pizza that neither of them finished. Before Malik left, Nicholas Carter appeared in the doorway. "I underestimated you," he said to Malik. Malik raised an eyebrow. "Most people do." Nicholas nodded once. Good. Keep proving them wrong. After he left, Alex rolled his eyes. That was a compliment, by the way. For him, that's like giving you a trophy. Mullock grinned. Then I'll put it on a shelf in my mind. They both laughed, and in that moment, it became clear that something had shifted again. But this time, not broken, not shattered. Something deeper had been revealed, and nothing had been lost. The snow didn't let up for days. The streets of Westbrook grew quieter under its weight, and the school building stood like a quiet island surrounded by white. Inside, heaters buzzed and hummed in every classroom, and windows fogged with warm breath while lessons dragged toward the end of the semester. But under the surface of routine, something was shifting. Whispers moved through the halls, not yet loud, but growing. It began after Nicholas Carter's visit. Some had seen the black car, some had seen the driver. A few had caught a glimpse of the man in the tailored coat, and, in the way children always sense that something doesn't add up, the rumors began. Did you see his chair? That thing looks custom. I heard his dad owns, like, a chain of banks or something. No, it's hotels. 5-star places. My mom said she saw him in a magazine once. Alex noticed it first in the silence that fell when he entered a room. Not the old kind of silence, the one that came from discomfort or pity. This was a different kind, calculated, loaded, like people were waiting to see what he'd say, what he'd do, and Mullock noticed it too. You feel it? Mullock asked one morning as they walked into first period. Yeah, Alex replied. You think it's going to get worse? Alex didn't answer. He was already bracing for it. He'd seen this happen before. In earlier schools, whenever someone discovered who his father was, the change in behavior came almost overnight. Suddenly, people smiled too wide. Teachers gave too much praise. Students tried too hard, or not at all, choosing instead to pretend like he didn't exist out of some misplaced resentment. It was never about him. It was about the last name, the perceived weight of it. He had spent years trying to escape it. That Thursday morning, an announcement over the intercom summoned both Alex and Mullock to the main office. They called me too? Mullock asked, eyebrows raised. Alex looked uneasy. Yeah, I don't like it. The walk to the office was quiet. They passed students who turned to watch them go, some curious, others whispering. When they arrived, the secretary gave them both a polite but distant nod and gestured toward the conference room. Inside, Principal Hawthorne stood near the window, arms folded. 2 other teachers were seated nearby, and at the head of the table, as if the room belonged to him, sat Nicholas Carter. He rose when the boys entered, his expression unreadable. Thank you both for coming, Principal Hawthorne said, motioning for them to sit. Nicholas spoke before anyone else could. I asked for this meeting, he said, because it's time we address the assumptions being passed around this school. He looked directly at the principal. My son has been here for months now. He came quietly. He didn't ask for recognition. He didn't ask for favors. And he certainly didn't trade on his name. Alex sat still, his shoulders tense, his face carefully blank. Nicholas continued. But people talk, children talk, and if there's one thing that poisons a good environment, it's speculation. He reached into his coat and pulled out a thin folder which he placed on the table. This is a formal letter confirming that my son, Alex Carter, is the legal beneficiary and heir to Carter Holdings, which includes, but is not limited to, commercial properties, real estate development portfolios, and philanthropic initiatives. I'm not here to brag. I'm here to say this. His background doesn't entitle him to special treatment. It doesn't make him better or worse than anyone else in this school. He looked at Alex then, and something passed between them, firm but quiet. "He asked to come here," Nicholas said, "because he wanted to be seen as himself, not as my son, and I respected that." The room was silent. Principal Hawthorne cleared her throat. "Mr. Carter, I'm not done," Nicholas said, raising a hand. His voice was calm but commanding. "There's one more thing I want to make clear. The only reason my son found a real friend in this school is because someone," he turned to Malik, "saw him without judgment, without assumption. And I think that's something worth recognizing." He stepped back and nodded once, a silent signal that he had finished. Alex exhaled slowly. Malik sat, stunned, unsure what had just happened. After a few more words from the administration, the meeting ended, but the echo of it followed them back into the halls. By lunchtime, the school was buzzing. People stared as Alex rolled into the cafeteria. Some eyes were full of awe, some of resentment, some confused. But Alex didn't change his route. He moved toward their usual table where Malik was already waiting. "You okay?" Malik asked quietly. Alex nodded. "I guess this was inevitable." Malik hesitated. "That thing he said about me, he didn't have to do that." "I think he wanted to," Alex replied. "He knows I wouldn't have lasted here without you." For the rest of the week, their days were different. Teachers watched them with new expressions. Students hovered at the edge of conversation. A few tried to ask questions. "Is it true your dad owns part of the city? Are you moving to private school now? You could probably buy this school if you wanted to, right?" Alex answered politely. Or didn't answer at all. One afternoon, during study hall, a classmate approached their table. "I used to think you were just another quiet kid," the boy said to Alex. "Didn't know you were loaded." Alex stared at him. "Does it matter?" The boy shrugged. "Guess not." Malik leaned in. "Then why'd you bring it up?" The boy didn't respond. He just walked away. That night, Alex told his mom everything. About the meeting, about the looks, about how much had changed in only a few days. She listened patiently, sitting beside him at the kitchen table, her hands curled around a steaming mug of tea. "It'll pass," she said. "I don't want to be the rich kid," Alex said. "I just want to be the kid who draws buildings and hates PE." She smiled. "Then keep being him. Let the rest fall away." The next morning, Alex asked Malik to walk with him into school a little earlier than usual. "I want to talk to the class," he said, "before things get worse." They arrived just as the first bell rang. Their homeroom was half full. Alex wheeled to the front without asking the teacher, who stepped aside in quiet surprise. "I know you've heard things," Alex said. His voice was steady. "And they're true. My dad's a big deal. He owns stuff, and yeah, I live in a nicer apartment than some people. But none of that matters when I'm here. Because when I'm here, I'm just Alex. I came here to be seen like anyone else. And if that's not enough for you, I'm not the one who's missing out." He turned, wheeled back to his seat. No one spoke. Then someone clapped. One, then two, then more. By the end of the day, something had changed again. But this time it wasn't suspicion or curiosity. It was respect. January arrived with sharp winds and quiet skies. The snow that had blanketed Westbrook before the break had mostly turned to dirty slush, piled along sidewalks and curbs, but the air remained bitter and still. School resumed after the holidays with the usual mix of reluctance and restlessness. Students returned taller, with new winter coats or stories about trips and gifts. The first few days back passed in a fog of reacclimation. Teachers reminded everyone what day it was. Students fumbled to remember locker combinations, and homework assignments were met with half-hearted groans. But something was different now at Westbrook Middle School. There was a quiet shift in the halls, not spoken aloud, but felt. The story of Alex Carter's background had spread, and not just among students. Teachers spoke of him now with a new kind of awareness, part admiration, part hesitation. Some treated him with excessive care, like he was fragile. Others, unsure of how to reconcile his quiet demeanor with his family's influence, tried to act as if nothing had changed. But the students saw it more clearly. They had seen the moment he stood in front of the class and told the truth. They had heard the calm defiance in his voice. They remembered how he didn't demand attention. He just asked to be treated the same. It was Malik who helped shape what came next. One afternoon, he asked Alex a question as they walked down the hall between classes. "Why don't we do something with all of this?" "With what?" "The attention," Malik said. "The influence. People are finally listening. Why not use it for something real?" Alex considered that. "Like what?" "I don't know yet, but let's figure it out." That evening, they met at Alex's place with notebooks and snacks. They talked about the things that still didn't work at school. Ramps too steep, bathrooms too cramped, elevators that were always locked and required a key from the office. Malik pointed out other issues too, things that didn't just affect Alex. Kids who got teased because they didn't have the newest shoes. Others who couldn't afford lunch some days. They talked for hours. By the end of the night, they had a plan. They called it the Peer Access Project. It started small. Just the two of them, a few drafted pages, and a list of simple, achievable goals. Accessible doors, flexible seating arrangements in classrooms, creating a buddy system for students who felt left out. Malik handled the presentation materials, adding color and simple, clear wording. Alex added the structure, the research, the specific problem points. They split the tasks equally, never once arguing over who would lead. It wasn't about credit, it was about getting things done. The first person they showed it to was their social studies teacher, Mr. Lennox. He read through the documents slowly, eyebrows raised. "This is impressive," he said when he finished. "Very impressive. Do you want me to pass this along to the principal?" "No," Malik said. "We want to present it ourselves." And so they did. 2 weeks later, they stood in front of the administration and several faculty members at a staff meeting after school. Alex spoke first, calmly outlining the issues. Malik followed with personal stories and student perspectives. They took turns answering questions. They didn't flinch. They didn't back down. The presentation ended in silence, then applause. That moment changed everything. The principal gave her full support. A committee was formed, with both boys sitting in as student representatives. A survey went out to the student body. Ideas began to circulate in classrooms. Teachers invited them to speak to other grades. A local newspaper published a small article with a photo of the two of them in front of the school sign, smiling and holding the first approved proposal. And through it all, their friendship didn't just survive, it thrived. They still teased each other about homework, still sat in the back of the library and whispered about absurd cafeteria rumors. But now, other kids started joining them. Slowly at first. One boy who was always alone during lunch asked to sit with them. A girl with braces and a lisp volunteered to help them hand out flyers. A group of 6th graders stopped them in the hallway to ask how they could join. It was Malik who said it first. "I think we started something." Alex just nodded. "I think we did too." Spring approached slowly. The air warmed, the snow melted. The school began to buzz with talk of year-end events, field days, and summer. But something more lasting had taken root. Ramps were rebuilt. The elevator policy changed. Teachers adjusted seating plans to include flexible spaces. And students, perhaps for the first time, began to look at one another differently. It wasn't just about inclusion anymore. It was about belonging. During a student assembly near the end of March, the principal invited Alex and Malik on stage to speak about the Peer Access Project. The room filled with over 200 students. Some of them whispered. Some barely listened. But many did. And when Alex talked about how hard it was to feel seen when everything about your body felt like an obstacle, and when Malik talked about how hard it was to feel equal when the world made you feel less without saying it out loud, those students listened. Afterward, a girl in a wheelchair approached Alex. "No one ever said any of that before," she told him. A boy who'd once mocked Malik now nodded respectfully in the hallway. A teacher stopped both boys one afternoon and said, "You've changed how this place works." Neither of them responded with pride. They just kept going. One day in April, they sat under the tree behind the school, watching the early blooms on the branches. "Do you ever think," Malik asked, "how weird it is that all of this started because I wanted to eat lunch in peace?" Alex smiled. "And I let you." "You let me?" Malik said, pretending to be offended. "Best decision I ever made." Malik chuckled. "Seriously, though, I think about it sometimes. What if I'd ignored you like everyone else?" Alex looked at him, not joking now. "Then I don't know who I'd be today." Malik didn't answer right away. Then he said, "Same." They didn't talk about what the next year would bring. High school loomed, yes, but it didn't matter in that moment. What mattered was what they had built, together, and the understanding that whatever came next, it wouldn't be faced alone. Because friendship, they had learned, wasn't about convenience or similarity. It was about choice. It was about standing beside someone when the world pointed and laughed and choosing not to walk away. It was about showing up again and again until trust grew roots and change grew wings. And for the first time in a long time, Alex Carter felt not only seen, but known. And Malik Johnson knew he had done something that would last, not because it was loud, but because it was true. The final weeks of the school year passed the way endings often do, not with dramatic declarations or sudden changes, but with a quiet accumulation of lasts. Last quizzes. Last assemblies. Last slow walks through the hallway as the sun poured through the windows in long, golden streaks. At Westbrook Middle School, students began counting down the days not just with anticipation, but with a flicker of something else. Nostalgia, maybe, or the awareness that something real was slipping out of reach. For Alex Carter and Malik Johnson, the year had been more than a collection of lessons and tests. It had been a turning point. Their friendship, born from a quiet gesture and a shared table, had grown into something that reached far beyond them. Their work on the Peer Access Project had transformed the way the school thought about inclusion, not just for students in wheelchairs, but for anyone who had ever felt like they didn't quite fit. Classrooms had been rearranged, staff policies adjusted. Students who once walked in silence now asked questions, offered help, made room. And everywhere Alex and Malik went, people stepped back, not in fear or confusion, but in recognition. But as the end of 8th grade approached, a new kind of uncertainty began to settle in. High school was coming. They would both be attending Jefferson High, one of the largest public schools in the district. The program was strong. The campus was accessible. They had been accepted into the leadership initiative and even invited to speak at orientation. Still, the shift was undeniable. New teachers, new students, new challenges. Neither of them said it aloud, but both knew what it meant. Everything they had built here, everything they had become, would soon be tested. The final assembly of the year was scheduled for a warm Friday in May. The auditorium filled with parents, students, teachers, and staff, all dressed a little nicer than usual. Some kids wore pressed button-ups. Others came in sneakers and untucked shirts. The room buzzed with excitement, and under it all, the quiet knowledge that childhood, in its middle school form, was about to end. Alex sat near the front, his hands resting calmly on his wheels. Malik sat beside him, bouncing one knee out of nervous energy. "I still can't believe they asked us to speak," he whispered. "You're the one who said we should use our voices," Alex murmured back. "Yeah, but I didn't mean with a microphone." Too late now. When their names were called, the applause was immediate. They rolled and walked up to the podium together. Malik adjusted the mic. Alex placed their shared speech on the stand and looked out into the crowd. Teachers smiled. Students leaned forward. And somewhere near the back, Alex's mother and Nicholas Carter sat shoulder to shoulder, both watching quietly. Alex began. "This year wasn't easy, for anyone, but especially for those of us who've ever felt like we didn't belong." He paused. Malik took over. "When I came to this school last year, I thought I had to keep my head down. That being different meant being invisible. But then I met someone who proved that different didn't mean alone." Alex picked up the thread. "Malik sat beside me when no one else would. And I let him. That's where it started." They took turns from there, speaking of their friendship, their project, and what they had learned. About courage that comes not from standing above others, but beside them. About change that begins in moments that seem too small to matter. About listening, truly listening, even when it's uncomfortable. When they finished, the room was quiet for a heartbeat. Then applause. Loud, lasting. After the assembly, students and parents came to shake their hands, to thank them, to take photos. Teachers hugged them. Some cried. Alex smiled, not from pride, but from the quiet certainty that this was real. This mattered. Later that day, they sat under the tree at the far end of the school grounds, what had become their place. The sky was wide and blue above them, and the grass warm beneath the soft hum of the approaching summer. "Feels weird," Malik said, lying on his back, arms folded behind his head. "Like we blinked and it's over." Alex looked up at the sky. "It's not over." "I know, but this version of it is." They sat in silence for a while. Then Alex said, "You ever think about what would have happened if we never talked? If you never came into that classroom?" "Every day," Malik said, "and every day I'm glad I did." "So am I." They spent the afternoon walking and rolling through their favorite places. The library, the back hallway where the vending machine used to break, the side stairwell where someone once stuck googly eyes on every step. Memories hung in the air like dust in sunlight, tiny, weightless, everywhere. That evening, they went to the end-of-year party at Malik's apartment building. It was crowded, full of music and neighbors and food that came in paper trays. Alex brought his sketch pad. Malik brought his camera. They didn't talk about high school. They didn't need to, because even as the world around them shifted, even as the structure of their days prepared to change, the center of it remained the same. They had chosen each other. That summer, they saw each other nearly every day. They worked together on a new accessibility map for the city's bus stops. They met incoming freshmen and answered questions about Jefferson High. They spent long evenings in coffee shops and libraries, planning what they would build next. One afternoon in late July, Malik asked, "Do you think we'll always be like this?" Alex looked at him, his expression serious. "We'll always be us, that's enough." High school arrived with its own set of storms. New people, new expectations, new spaces. But Alex and Malik navigated them the way they had learned to navigate everything, together. And when people asked how they met, they would smile and say, "It started with a seat at lunch." Because in the end, that's all it had taken. One decision, one act of kindness, one refusal to walk past someone who looked like they'd been walked past 1,000 times. Years later, long after the speeches and projects and awards had faded into memory, people still remembered the boy in the wheelchair who changed how the school was built, and the boy who never let him face it alone. But to Alex and Malik, they were never those boys. They were just friends. And friendship, they knew now, didn't fade with time. Not real friendship. It lasts forever. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a new upload. Check out the next video right here and explore more content on the channel that you're sure to love. And if you found this helpful or interesting, share it.